Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mehmet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Captain.
Welcome, WABC listeners and YouTube viewers. Our next guest is a friend of mine. I know him for a number of years, and he's running for election to the city council. We're very glad to have him here.
So our guest today on Cop Talk is Frank Morano. Frank Morano is a candidate for the Staten Island City Council, representing Staten Island, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, Ed, it is great to be here. I love your show. I listen regularly. I've stolen some of my best guests from you guys, and you guys do a wonderful job in a city that often seems like it's going crazy, especially on a governmental level. You guys are a rare voice of sanity, and I know a lot of the cops that I've been meeting, active and retired, while campaigning, they all listen to your show. So keep up the great work. I'm honored to be here.
And you have your own show.
That's right. The Other Side of Midnight.
The Other
1
Side
a.m.
of
to
Midnight.
5 a.m.
Yep.
People can check it out, and if they don't want to stay up that late, they can listen to the podcast anytime they want. Just search The Other Side of Midnight on any podcast app.
Awesome. Well, Frank, thanks for being here today.
Thank
I know
you.
You're busy campaigning, and we wish you all the luck. As
Thank
you know,
you.
you have our support.
I appreciate that.
On that note,
And as a detective, I'm particularly honored to have the endorsement of the DEA, great law enforcement union, and their president, Scott Monroe's been a warrior in terms of supporting my candidacy.
Awesome. I'm actually on the political action committee for the DEA.
Wonderful.
As
Thank you again. Thank you doubly so.
On that note, give our audience your background. Where you grew up, where you went to school.
Well, look, I'm a lifelong Staten Islander. Lived in Staten Island my whole life, and attended public school my entire Staten Island career until college. PS3, IS-34, Tottenville High School, and then ultimately I went to NYU for college. And I love Staten Island. It's a great place to live. It was a great place to grow up. It's the only place I can imagine living. And we're raising my wife Rachel and I are raising our 3-year-old son Carmine there. And one of the things that kind of was my impetus for wanting to run, aside from not wanting to see someone lackluster take over for Joe Borelli, is that I want to be able to say to my son when he's an adult, because I saw so many of my friends move off of Staten Island, I want to be able to say to him that I did everything in my power to keep him here, whether it's through sanitary conditions, whether it's through not having people nickel and dime to death, whether it's through public safety, whether it's through anything that needs doing. I'd like to be able to say, look, I left it all out on the field. I fought the good fight. And if at that point you still want to make the decision to move to Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida, Arizona, Tennessee, that's on you, but it's not going to be because of any lack of effort on my part. Right.
What actually made you want to run for city council? I mean, besides the most obvious, I'm sure.
Well, really that. I mean, honestly, I have, Ed knows, I have a great job. And this job is one that I've been trying for my entire life, to be able to have an overnight radio show on the station that I grew up listening to, and then to have that show be syndicated all over the country. It's really a dream come true. And ultimately, as you know, Kevin and Ed, unlike the work you used to do, the work I'm doing, it's a lot of fun and it can be a lot of hard work, but it's not exactly digging ditches or doing brain surgery. If I do a bad show, if I screw up anything, nobody dies. I make a goofy comment, I go to the wrong caller, I don't have an appropriate retort, I do a bad interview. All those things are very rare, by the way. You make it up the next day. But I wanted to do something that I felt might have been a bit more consequential. And that's where I see what's going on in the city council, not only with respect to law enforcement, which you guys have chronicled better than anybody, but just the city council as a whole. And it's a house of insanity. And I want to be able to give voice to the silent majority, or at least the silent plurality of New Yorkers that feel the city council doesn't speak to them or speak for them. I want to be the guy that stands up and says, all right, when we're in the midst of a projected budget deficit, maybe now's the time, not the time for a commission to have reparations for slavery. I want to be the guy at a time when we're talking about cutting universal pre-K that says, all right, maybe now's not the time to spend a couple of $1 billion for housing and accommodations for illegal aliens. I want to be the guy that gives voice to the New Yorkers that feel like nobody speaks for them.
You know, crime is a very good county, very good borough, and I'm sure crime is down in Staten Island. However, what would you say is the highest crime issue in Staten Island?
In my district, it's a little bit different, North Shore versus South Shore. Where I live in the South Shore and in the district that I'm seeking to represent, it's a combination of home invasions and auto theft. We're seeing a big problem with catalytic converter theft. People come over from Jersey, they steal the catalytic converters or they steal the cars. A lot of people leaving the keys in the cars themselves. A lot of people trying to get into the cars, see what's unlocked, and just rob whatever they can find. And they'll go back to New Jersey. So I think we need broader use of checkpoints. But what's particularly scary to people in my neighborhood is these home invasions. They're going into people's houses with the intention of finding the car keys so they can then go steal the car. That's one of the rare crime categories in the South Shore of Staten Island that's up. So I don't know whether the solution is a task force. I brought this up. It's on my website. People could check it out, moranoforcouncil.com. The DA's office says they already have a task force with this in mind. If that's the case, I think it's insufficient. And I think that's something I want to work hand in hand with not only the DA, but the local precinct to put a stop to. But those two sister categories of crime, auto theft and home invasions.
You know, you talk about a theft of catalytic converters. I live in Manhattan, and my catalytic converter for my car was stolen. I got into the car one morning, and I started up. It sounded like an aircraft engine. I said, what the hell happened to my car? And they came in the middle of the night, and they cut out and it's an older car. But the value of the converters is very high.
Well, look, Ed, if you're wealthy enough to have a car in Manhattan while you're living here and be able to afford a parking space, I'm playing the world's smallest violin for your catalytic converter.
I gave the car to my son, so
it's his problem now. No, but I recognize it's a big problem all over the place. It's a big problem all over the place, no doubt about it, no question.
You know, you have a large number of cops living in Staten
Island. On my block, I think I have 5.
Active and retired.
That's right.
There's plenty of guns out there.
Damn right. Most of them legal guns, thankfully. That's one of the reasons our neighborhood is so safe is because, you know, if you mess around on my block, there are 5 active and retired cops that will come out armed, ready to shoot you.
And I'm assuming they're all going to support you in your bid for the council.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to get a lot of the law enforcement unions. We got the SBA, the DEA, the correction officers, Teamsters Local 237, which represents the hospital police and school safety officers. I'm waiting to hear back from a couple of other law enforcement unions, but the response that I get is overwhelmingly positive. I've tried to go on every cop podcast that I can. Our friend Sal Greco had me on his podcast. John McCary had me on his podcast. And obviously now I'm happy to be on the granddaddy of them all, Cop Talk with you guys. But the response that I get is very, very favorable.
Well, you know, there are 5 police unions. You have the endorsement of just one?
Well, 2 so far, the DEA and the SBA. And the captains and lieutenants made the decision to stay out of it. Hopefully they'll make a different decision for the primary because whatever happens in this April special election coming up on April 29th, we're all running again in the June primary. So we're running in April, then we're running again in June, and we're running in November. So I'm hoping to get a big win in April, and then come June, we'll get a big win. And a lot of the law enforcement unions that have maybe sat on the sidelines will come out for me in June.
PBA as well, stepping out?
I don't know. I expect a decision from them imminently. I got my fingers crossed. I've interviewed. It went well. We'll see what happens.
And the fire department?
You know, I got a nice contribution from the UFA. They haven't officially endorsed yet. I had a great discussion just this morning with the UFOA. I am hopeful that we'll hear from them forthwith.
What about the PBA? I didn't hear you say anything.
I'm hoping this week we're going to hear from them.
I didn't hear you say that.
I'm hoping this week. We had a great talk, though.
That's great.
I don't imagine they're going to endorse the other guy. So I think if they don't endorse me, they may stay out of it. And look, I understand, but it's politics in that I'm sure they're getting pressure from external factors as well, but I'm hoping to win them over. I certainly have the support of the rank and file, regardless.
That's the bottom line.
Exactly. Right.
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
Going to the gym can be discouraging, especially if you're putting in the work but barely seeing changes. But with Tonal, you can actually see your progress with every workout. Tonal provides the convenience of a full gym and the expertise of a personal trainer anytime at home with one sleek system. Designed to reduce your mental load, Tonal is the ultimate strength training system, helping you focus less on workout planning and more on getting results. No more second-guessing your technique. Tonal gives you real-time coaching cues to dial in your form and help you lift safely and effectively. After a quick assessment, Tonal sets the optimal weight for every move and adjusts in 1-pound increments as you get stronger, so you're always challenged. Tonal lets you choose from a variety of expert-led workouts, from strength to aero hit to yoga and mobility, to keep you coming back for more. For a limited time, go to Tonal.com to get $500 off your Tonal purchase, plus a free 4-year warranty. That's Tonal.com for $500 off, plus a free 4-year warranty. Tonal.com.
You know, getting on to some very more important issues, the illegal aliens. Mm-hmm. You've had some issues out there on Staten Island, right, with the housing. And Curtis Sliwa was very involved. What's the situation right now?
Well, fortunately, in my district, we have not had any migrant housing shelter at all. And so far, there's no plans for any. But as we saw with the situation at St. John Villa, and the Midland Beach situation as well, that could all change at the drop of a hat. So the big issue of concern is the plans for a 4-story transient hotel on Arthur Kill Road and Richmond Valley Road, which people are concerned would basically be a homeless shelter. And my belief is the developer who bought that, who has some migrant shelters in other places around the city, bought that with the intention of making it a migrant shelter. And now that there's a little bit less of a demand for migrant shelter, that he's going to make it a homeless shelter, which I can tell you the local residents don't think is any better.
Well, you know, the city is spending millions to house these people.
Yeah.
When you're on the city council, I say when you are, not if you are.
Thank you. Knock on wood.
What will your position be regarding the funding for the illegals, not the migrants? I call them illegals.
Well, look, I know most of them are illegals, but when it gets to a question of legal status, I guess if they're an asylum seeker, technically they're not illegal, but that's a distinction without a difference in my view, because we still have to pay the bills for all these people. Look, I'm a hard no vote on keeping this endless spigot of cash flowing to anybody that comes here from anywhere in the world. You know, as you know better than me, because you were a cop in those days, the consent decree from the Kavanaugh decision was not meant for New York to solve the housing needs of the entire third world. It was meant, if you're a New Yorker that's fallen on hard times and you can't afford to live someplace, New York is going to make sure that you have a bed. It's not meant for somebody from Ecuador or Venezuela that's been here for 6 hours and has never had any history in New York. So I think count me as a solid no vote on any budgetary issue or anything else with respect to the keeping the funding going on this migrant problem.
When you're the mayor, would you support the police department working with ICE?
Well, look, I'm solidly for Curtis for mayor. So I'm only looking to run for city council. I'm going to be a great partner to Curtis when he's elected. But yes, not only would I support the police department working for ICE, I just testified a couple of days ago before the Charter Revision Commission saying that they ought to put a question on the ballot this year and let New Yorkers vote. Do we want to keep this ridiculous sanctuary city status? The fact that the de Blasio era city council put in additional hurdles keeping the NYPD from working with ICE and honoring lawful ICE detainer requests, to me, it's not just dangerous, it's insane. So absolutely, I would support that, and I want the Charter Revision Commission to put that on the ballot this year. You know, Eric Adams, who you've had his number from Jump Street long before he was elected to anything.
Oh, yes.
He's trying to refashion himself as a more moderate or conservative mayor, and I'm all for that. If he's going to do the right thing, let him do the right thing. Here's an opportunity for him to put his money where his mouth is. He's parroting all the right talking points. He's carrying around Kash Patel's book. These are his appointees. Have him direct his Charter Revision Commission to put the question of sanctuary city status on the ballot this year, and let New Yorkers vote. Let both of us make our case. Let me, presumably you, Curtis, Scott Lebedo, and others who think that we should not be a sanctuary city, let us make our case. And then let folks like Adrian Adams and Jamani Williams and Brad Lander make their case as to why we should.
You know, I mentioned the city council. There's a battle going on right now regarding this issue. They're supposed to take a vote on it.
Yeah, look, I mean, you really, and it's one of the reasons I'm so eager to serve in the city council, because if you look time and again, there are these anti-law enforcement measures that are passed by the city council in veto-proof majorities. The neck compression bill, the How Many Stops Act, we can go down the list. And even if you had Rudy Giuliani as mayor, you still have a city council that could override all of his vetoes. The mayor, to his credit, vetoed several of the worst pieces of legislation. What did the city council do? Instantly, they overturned the veto. So unless we can make some headway on the city council and getting more moderate people elected, or even they could be liberals, but liberals that believe in law enforcement, then it's all for naught. So yeah, this is where the battle is being waged. And people that, they're expecting the turnout in my election in April 29th to be maybe 8.5%, maybe 10% at absolute most. Think about that. This is the body that is controlling what's going on in New York these days. This is the body that's totally out of control, and yet people aren't tuned in to go out and vote in this election. And at some point, we've got nobody to blame but ourselves if we don't show up.
Yeah, the city council is like a bunch of lunatics. You forgot qualified immunity.
Yeah, I mean, again, we could go down the list, right. And that's right. Another one. Absolutely.
So you would support abolishment of all these crazy laws restricting the police department?
100%. Look, and I don't want people to misunderstand me. I think if a cop is out of line or guilty of misconduct, he should be dealt with. But if you look at the layers of discipline that the police department has now, you not only have internal affairs, you not only have 5 DAs, you not only have 2 U.S. attorneys, you not only have an inspector general, you not only have a court-appointed monitor, all of whom, you not only have a civilian complaint review board, all of whom have the ability to met out some sort of disciplinary action against police. You think to yourself, at what point is enough enough? We've got more cops policing the police than we do policing the criminals. It's nuts.
True. And Staten Island is pretty much a Republican county?
It's a great question. It's a purple county. The South Shore is solidly Republican. The North Shore is solidly Democrat. And the Mid-Island is a swing district. So it's a place where people like Barack Obama won in 2012, but it's also a place where folks like Donald Trump won overwhelmingly. It's a place Bill Clinton won. It's a place George Bush won. It's a place Al Gore won. It's a place John McCain won. So it's a purple county. In a lot of ways, Staten Island is much more like the rest of America than the other 4 boroughs are.
Yeah, interesting.
Since the Republicans are the minority in the council, how do you deal with what you want to do to overcome the numerical disadvantage you're at?
Ed, that is such a good question, and that is the second most commonly asked question I get, aside from why do you want to give up this plush radio gig in order to deal with a lot of these crazies? And the answer is going to be the first vote that I take in January if I'm elected to a full 4-year term, and that's the speaker's race. The city council is really the only body in all of New York where the minority party gets a say in helping choose the speaker. We're going to have 6, maybe 7 votes, if you include the Common Sense Caucus, possibly as many as 9 votes in terms of determining who the speaker is. other than the Progressive Caucus, that is going to be the largest block of votes in picking the speaker. So we know the speaker is going to be a Democrat. The question is it going to be a far left-wing DSA anti-cop lunatic like some of the people they're talking about as the next speaker? Or is it going to be a regular moderate Democrat or even a liberal Democrat that doesn't want to abolish the police, that doesn't want to turn New York into New Havana, that doesn't want to abolish private property and have city-run grocery stores? We can use our block of votes to work to get a more moderate speaker elected. And if we do that, you're not going to have a situation where a right-winger is the speaker. That's never going to happen in New York City. But you're going to get a situation where New Yorkers are dealt with fairly and where law enforcement is dealt with fairly. And I think that's all people are asking for. So it's the leverage that the Republican conference has in the speaker's race that's our opportunity to make a difference.
Well, the city council, I think, is the biggest problem we have, the current city council. And I noticed that it became crazy after term limits came in, because I can go back years back when the city council was the same people getting elected over and over again, and they were kind of normal. I mean, they were very normal. I never saw anything like this.
I think you're exactly right on the timing there. And just to illustrate the point I made a minute ago, that kind of golden age of governance in New York City, we had Giuliani as mayor and Peter Vallone as the speaker of the city council. By the way, those guys fought all the time. They disagreed on all sorts of issues. And that's how government should work. You should have an adversarial relationship. But it was Susan Molinari, as the Republican minority leader at the time, that provided the tie-breaking vote to allow Peter Vallone to become the speaker. Now, imagine if she had went the other way and been a little less careful with her vote. That whole era of that golden age that you're describing may never have happened. So that's what I want to do with my other Republican colleagues, is pick a Peter Vallone type that might be waiting in the wings among the Democrats. I'm still a supporter of term limits. I understand where you're coming from, that it has paved the way for a lot of people to get elected. I think that has more to do, in my judgment, with the fact that New York City has closed primaries, because in 44 seats, all you have to do is win the Democratic primary. And when all you have to do to win the Democratic primary, that sends a message to every Democratic candidate that all we have to do to win is be the most left-wing person, because only the most left-wing people come out to vote in those Democratic primaries. That's where I think the problem is. If we had nonpartisan elections where every taxpayer could vote, I don't think you'd see some of these crazies getting elected.
Now, Susan Molinari, she's a Staten Islander.
She was. I think she lives in Florida or Virginia now.
Guy Molinari.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Sure.
Yep.
You mentioned Curtis a few times. Why does he keep referring to you as a mameluke?
As you know Curtis a long time too, Ed, and I think as the audience knows with Curtis, if he really doesn't like you, he just doesn't mention you. Curtis and I have worked together on radio and in politics for about 23 years. He's one of my closest friends. He was out campaigning with me yesterday on, and has been great, even on Palm Sunday. He's great. He likes to bust chops. Curtis is a master theater of the mind tactician, and I'm happy every time he mentions me, because it just means more publicity for my show and more publicity for my candidacy.
Frank, I'm sorry, Cap.
We've had him on this show 3 times.
I've heard all 3 interviews. You've been great.
Frank, what would be your plan? Not that you have to have one, but if you were to come up with one in regards to recruitment for NYPD.
I think it's severalfold. One is we've got a morale crisis. We've got a situation where people don't feel like the NYPD members that I talk to, including a lot of friends of mine, they're eager to retire. They're eager to go someplace like Westchester, Nassau County, Suffolk County, Florida, because they feel that these are police departments that support them. I think there needs to be a whole culture shift in terms of morale and supporting the police. That's number one. The second issue is salary, right? We see the salary of sergeants, where in some cases they're making less than some of the cops they're supervising. You're seeing what's going on with detectives now, and there's a huge problem with recruitment. On the back end, the fact that a lot of qualified cops who are in the prime of their careers mentally and no slouch physically are forced to retire in some cases at 63 and a half years old is a real shame, because what we're missing out there is an incredible, not only diminishment of numbers, but you're missing out on an opportunity for some of these older cops to mentor the younger cops that are coming up now. And that's one of the reasons, even though a guy that I don't generally agree with, Senator Jackson, Democrat in the state Senate, he has a bill to fix that, to allow police officers to serve another 2 years on that front. State Senators Jessica Scarsdale of Staten, a Democrat from Staten Island, but a pro-law enforcement Democrat, she's got similar legislation that would fix one of the pension problems. This is the problem. I'm also very pro-labor, even though I'm pro-cop and a Republican and endorsed by the Republican Party and the Conservative Party and every Republican elected official that doesn't have a relative running against me. I am also very pro-labor, and one of the things that I've seen with a great deal of disgust in the city council is they've affirmatively left cops out of a lot of pro-labor stuff they've been doing in terms of pensioning. Now, that's nuts. So I think what you need is somebody that can be a voice to the public on law enforcement issues and a voice within the city council on making sure cops are included in pro-labor issues. And unfortunately now, I think what you see in the city council is the worst of both worlds, where they are hostile on law enforcement issues, and they actually go out of their way to exclude cops on pension adjustments that they make and things like that.
Yeah, well said. True.
Well, Kevin could tell you about the drop program. I assume that would be a state issue, but perhaps you would support it. Why don't you tell him about the drop program?
Actually, we're touching on it before.
But tell the audience.
Yeah,
they may not be
it
aware.
works well in Cleveland. I believe it's San Diego as well, and some other cities, where basically you hit 63, mandatory retirement for the NYPD. So if you wanted to stay, 63 years old, maybe take a physical, you could stay. You sign a 3-year contract, say 3 years, and after 3 years you could maybe sign on for another 2 years, 5 years being max. Your pension gets frozen, so you can't, add to the pension. It's frozen. You'll collect that once your contract's done. And in the meantime, you're basically hired back doing the same job you've been doing for the past X amount of years. Say, in my case, New York City Detective, Midtown North Detective Squad. Say I hit 63, I want to stay. Things are good, I'm healthy. Take the physical, all good. I freeze my pension. They hire me back as basically what I'm doing, a detective, doing everything the same with the exception of I can't add to my pension. And then I get my salary, as I've been getting for the past X amount of years. And then when I do finally leave, say it's 66, 67, 68, at my choice, then I would start to collect my pension.
I got to be honest. I did not know about the drop program and how it's worked elsewhere, but based on what you said just now and before the show started, I love the idea. And you can absolutely count on me as being a champion of it. It's something I'd love to work with you on publicly on that front.
Perfect.
I think it's a great idea.
I envision you as the head of the Public Safety Committee.
I'd love to do that. Would love to serve, and I think that's a committee that whether folks are listening on Rikers Island or Staten Island, it's pretty important in terms of delivering for constituents. And if I do get to serve in that capacity, and that's one of the reasons that it's so important to choose a good speaker, because hopefully we'll have a speaker that will let Republicans actually chair committees, unlike what we've seen from some other speakers. I'd love to serve in that capacity, and I think we'll be able to make a lot of difference.
Well, the current person is not the person I think it should be.
In terms of the speaker, or in terms of
the public safety committee?
I see. Well, I hear you. I hear you on that front, but I'm hoping come January there'll be a little bit of a sea change.
Now, I'd like to bring up something that's very, very important that Curtis is very involved with because of me, and I believe you're involved with. It's the health plan that the city is trying to force upon the retirees. As you are aware, there's about 250,000 New York City retirees, and many of them live in the city, and they're eligible to vote. And what the city wants to do, and Eric Adams, to his disgrace, before he ran, he said he was in favor of it, that it was a bait and switch. That's the term he used. Yet, when he became mayor, he directed the Corporation Council to fight the issue. And the issue is the city wants to make every New York City retiree go into a managed Medicare plan, which means you don't really get to keep your doctors. You have to use the doctors in the plan. Right now, the way it stands, when you retire from the city, you keep your GHI or Emblem Health, which becomes your secondary. You go on Medicare, which is your primary, and you have your secondary insurance, which is the city has. The city wants to eliminate that. They claim they would save, I think, $6 million. Your position on that?
Oh, I mean, I strongly agree that people that have worked for their entire careers for the city of New York, in some cases, foregoing raises and higher salaries in the private sector because of the expectation of a certain retirement benefit and health care benefit in retirement, I strongly agree that they should not have the rug pulled out from under them because they trusted that the city of New York would keep its word. You want to talk about the retention problem that we're having? You want to talk about the recruitment problem that we're having? All future cops, teachers, sanitation workers, correction officers need to see is, oh, you shouldn't believe anything the city tells you now because they can just change their mind later. Forget about it. You'd see people leaving the city and the state in even higher numbers than they're leaving now. So I am totally on board with Marianne Pizzatola and the New York City Public Service retirees. I think it's crazy what they're trying to do here, the current mayor and the previous mayor. And I think it goes far beyond fiscal responsibility. It's a matter of trust. I don't think you could say to people that they work their entire careers, 20, 25 years, 30 years, with the expectation of X, and all of a sudden we say to them, oh, you screwed up, you trusted us? No way. It's a matter of trust, and we've got to honor our commitment. I'm pleased that they've won every step of the way in court. I hope that they're going to win in the Court of Appeals, and I'm going to be a supporter of everything they want to do legislatively.
Well, you'll make a lot of retirees very happy.
Thank you. Well, look, it's the least we could do for them for everything they've done for the city. They built the city that we're living in. And whether it's what the mayor's trying to do or this pension Ponzi scheme that the governor's pushing in Albany, and I don't know if this show's going to be posted before the budget is done, but I'm hoping that doesn't make it into the final equation in terms of the budget. There's a relentless attack on the pensions of future retirees. And I just hope that there's enough people willing to fight the good fight and not let that happen.
Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so it's basically a pension savings, but it's really a time bomb. I'll get you the exact numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but basically they would be borrowing from the pension fund, and it creates a huge gaping hole for future retirees, not cops, but almost everybody else in about 10 years from now. It would be a disaster. I'll send you some information on it.
Well, at one time the city did that. They borrowed from our pension fund, and I can recall we didn't get a raise for many years because of that.
Yeah, you saw how well that worked.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. Yep. Well, Frank, you definitely have Cop Talk's endorsement. And
Thank
I'm sure,
you.
if
Honored.
not most of our audience, if not all of our audience.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that you have the DEA, Detective Endowment Association, endorsing you as well.
Absolutely. I'm wearing my DEA lapel pin right now, proudly.
I see that.
And,
I see that.
And thank you both, not only for having me on and saying such nice things, but for the work that you're doing all the time. I mean, for people that don't know, the work that you've done not only as police officers, but here, it's not exactly glamorous, doesn't exactly get you girls. You don't have a limo picking you up and bringing you here. And I'm appreciative of the fact that you guys were cops at a time that was so nuts and so crazy. It makes what we're going through now look like tiddlywinks. So thank you on behalf of all New Yorkers that got to grow up in a safer city because of you. And thanks for the great dialogue that you're providing here on Cop Talk. But for everybody that's listening or watching, if for whatever reason you don't like me, if you don't want to vote for me, and I certainly hope you do, April 29th, it is a ranked choice voting election. So if you don't like me and you like one of the other candidates better than me, rank me second. That's all I'm asking. So if you rank one of the other guys first, rank me second.
How many candidates are running for
Three
this?
candidates.
Frank, how could our audience donate or support you? Is there
Kevin, I'm so glad you asked that. So you can go to moranoforcouncil.com. That's MORANO forcouncil.com. Not only can you donate on there, but if you want to volunteer, you can volunteer on there. And you could see my platform on all sorts of issues, not just law enforcement, but we got about 60 ideas on there, all about improving New York and my ideas. Now, you can like them, you can dislike them, but at least I'm putting something out there. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, I don't think my opponents have put anything out there in terms of what they would do differently than what's happening now. So it's moranoforcouncil.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Cap?
Well, Frank, it's been a pleasure to have you here, and I wish you the best. I used to live on Staten Island, but I can't. I would have been able to vote for you then, but I can't vote for you now.
What neighborhood did you live in? I didn't know that.
I lived on the top of the hill there, Richmond Hill Road.
Oh, okay. That's just outside of the district from where I am now, but it's a great neighborhood and a lot of good people there. So we got to get you to move back. I'm hoping if I win, we can get you to move back.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Frank Morano, thank you for being here. Frank Morano, everyone, for City Council candidate, Staten Island,
Thank
and
you
I'm
both.
sure you'll win, and we'll have you back before you're elected, and also once you're elected, we'll have you back as well.
Thank you both, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. For everyone, all our audience, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to Cop Talk at Cop Talk WBC. That's at Cop Talk WBC. And until then, God bless you, God bless America, God bless law enforcement throughout the world, and God bless our U.S. military. Captain?
And you can view our future council member on YouTube.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
I'll be sharing it. Absolutely.
Be safe out there.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.